Guys, welcome. Chris Cox here. Today's video is going to cover 10 common guitar terms that you frequently hear and see in guitar lesson videos or guitar instructional books. Okay, so the first term is going to be a whole step. So whole steps and half steps is just a way to describe distance between two notes. So oftentimes in guitar lessons you might say, okay, we're going to move up a whole step. Well, that means that you're moving up 2 frets. So for example, if I'm playing a G and I count up 2 frets, 1, 2, then the distance between a G and an A is a whole step or 2 frets. Number 2 is half step. Half step means that there's 1 fret of distance between 2 notes. So if I'm here on a G and I'm told to move up a half step, then I'm going to move only 1 fret up, and that would be considered either my G sharp or my A flat, and we'll go over that in just a second. So the natural notes of the guitar are A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So if you hear the terminology, I'm going to play a C sharp, then that means that the sharp is always going to be in front of the note. So if here's a C, 1 fret away from that is going to make it a sharp. So this is C sharp. We'll do the same thing here with A. If this is an A and we move 1 fret up in the scale, that's going to be considered A sharp. Next term is flat. So if we play a G natural note here, if we go 1 fret behind that note, that's considered a G flat. So the flat's always going to be behind, 1 fret behind the natural note. Now this is the confusing part. This can be considered a G flat, but also an F sharp, because here's an F and we moved 1 fret ahead. So 1 fret distance will make this an F sharp. So they're both the same note, just 2 different names. The next term is bend, or bending a note. So basically what we're doing, if we do a full step bend, that means a whole step, which we now know is 2 frets. So we're trying to go from this note, that would be a full bend. So now if we did a half bend, that would be similar to like a half step what we learned earlier. That's 1 fret. So this will be the note we're going to. So this is the note we start at. This is the note we're trying to bend to. Next term is vibrato. So this is basically where we're manipulating the natural pitch of the note, almost like a pulsating variation. So if we play here an E, we do nothing with it, then there's no vibrato there. But if I shake the note, that will be considered vibrato. The next term is hammer-on. So if I hammer on from one note to the next, that's basically, I'm only plucking the note 1 time, but the hammer-on effect causes the note to ring out. So if I pluck here and I hammer on the 7th, that D note rings out, but I'm not actually plucking it with the pick, so I'm just hammering my finger down on the note. That's a hammer-on. Pull-off means that, just like a hammer-on, we're only plucking the string 1 time, but we're pulling off to the next note. So if I'm here on the D and I pull off to the C, I'm pulling my finger down, a downward motion. So that would be considered a pull-off. So of all the terms we've covered, I would say this one gets confused more than any of the others, and that's the term bar chord or power chord. So oftentimes when someone refers to a bar chord, they're actually talking about that full, major chord that you bar all 6 strings down here with your first finger. But oftentimes it's also referred to as a power chord, where you're just playing 2 notes, or maybe if you add an octave, that would be 3. So if we're here on the 5th fret of the E string, and then we go over here to the 7th fret of the A string, we play those 2 notes together, that's going to be considered an A5 chord. Your A note here, the 5th note, or your perfect 5th, we'll get into those later, but that's the 5th note in the major scale, makes it a 5 chord. But for most, I think, just understanding that shape, this is a common shape in rock music that you're going to play a ton. So if we move down between the A and the D string and play that same shape, that's going to be considered a D5, so D being our first note here, and then of course A being the 5th note in the scale. And then if we go down here between the D and G string, play that same shape, that's a G5. But now once we get between G and B, we're going to have to change because of the shift there between those 2 strings. So if we play this shape, it's not going to work. But you want to play that 5 chord, you're going to go 1, 2, 3. So a whole and a half step distance there. So you're getting, that would be a C5. Then if we go back to that shape again between the B and the high E, then we've also got that would be an E5 chord. So the Those are all 5 chords, or power chords, sometimes referred to as bar chords. Okay, and the number 10 term is going to be slide. So if we slide from one note to the next, that means it kind of similar to like with the hammer-ons and pull-offs. We're only plucking one time, but we're keeping pressure on the note and sliding in. So for example, here I'm on the C note of the G string, and I'm going to move to the D. I can slide up 2 frets. I've only plucked the note one time. I'm keeping pressure on it, quickly sliding to that next note. I can also do the same thing down the scale. You can go, so I pick the note once, slide my finger back. That's a slide.